health these days, where we will try to cover how to be mindful about our psychological health, especially in the pandemic. So that means that we are going to observe what is happening with us, all the pandemic stress and everything that has been taking a toll on our mental health. We are going to, observe it. We are going to challenge it, and we are going to try to deal with it today. So we're also going to we are going to learn the techniques to manage psychological health as well. So let's get started. So the first thing in our topic for today's session is being mindful. So what do we understand by being mindful? We have heard this term a lot in our frequent days, and we have been introduced to the topic as well. But what actually mindfulness means in the deepest of its core? The concept means to be aware of the things that are happening around us, to be in the present moment, to focus on what is happening right in front of us. So mindfulness can be anything. If I'm right here, I'm looking at the camera, I'm being mindful towards my participants in the webinar. But it also means that if I'm thinking about something, I'm being mindful towards my thoughts as well. I'm observing them. I'm observing what's happening in my mind. I'm observing the strength and the intensity of my thoughts and my emotions. Also, it means that when the negative or the positive emotions are building up inside of me, I'm trying to understand those instead of avoiding those or ignoring those or trying to run away from those. I'm actually observing them. I'm trying to accept them, and I'm trying to observe what they are doing to me and my health as well. So focusing on what is happening in the present moment is what we term as mindfulness, being aware towards the surroundings, the present moment. Let it be the negative thought. If I'm thinking, it could be thoughts. If I'm here in this moment, I am being mindful towards the webinar. So being mindful basically means having that attention and that focus in the present moment. So we are going to be talking about mindfulness in the aspect of emotions. As this is an emotional hygiene session, we will be talking more about mental health and emotions. So how do we all become mindful towards our emotions? The first thing that we need to learn, all of us, is that not to ever ignore our emotions. What we are feeling is very crucial to what our mental health is going to lead us to. So to start with basic psychology, you guys might know, you might not. So I'm going to just introduce a concept called, it was given by Sigmund Freud, the 3 consciousness levels of our mind. So we have our unconscious, and then we have subconscious, and we have our conscious level as well. So when we are attending to information, when we are there in the present moment and we are attending to it, so the information has less chances of getting into the unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind is the reservoir where of all the things that we are unaware of. It might lead to a lot of conflicts. It might lead to a lot of doubts and desires that we have that we are unaware of. There's this reservoir, and unconscious mind tends to create conflicts inside of our mind. And since we are unaware about our unconscious mind, what happens is that we are unable to solve those conflicts as we are not aware of those conflicts. So when we are attending to our emotions, when we are attending to the present moment, we are letting those emotions, those thoughts and those feelings, they let them get into our conscious level of mind and not letting them get into our unconscious mind. When we ignore any kind of information from the environment, the information tends to get into our unconscious mind. So preventing information from getting into unconscious mind is when we use the tool of mindfulness. We use mindfulness, we focus on the moment, and we deal with it consciously so that it does not peep into our unconscious mind. So most of us, we are facing pandemic stress and pandemic anxiety. What is happening is that pandemic is a stressful time, no doubt. Pandemic is not good for anyone out there in the whole world. But we are feeling so much of negative emotions and stressful stimuli, and so much of stress and anxiety, and we are not able to deal with them. And we are not able to deal with them because we are unaware of them. We are not mindful towards them. We are not observing them. Rather, we are having an avoidant approach. We are avoiding our emotional triggers. We are avoiding our negative emotions. We are avoiding our mental health. And that is why these emotions, they build up in our unconscious mind, and they lead to even more conflicts. So psychological conflicts are hard to deal with when it comes to self, when we are alone and we have to deal with these, it's kind of challenging over there because we are unaware of those things and they tend to magnify. All the emotions that are trapped inside of our unconscious mind, they will magnify and we will not be able to understand them, and thereby we won't be able to solve them. So that is how we use the technique of mindfulness. We attend to what is happening. We attend to everything, every emotion that we are feeling. We are observing everything. We are not letting our emotions, being ignored. We are not avoiding anything. We are not consciously trying to run away from anything, but we are attending to it. And that is the first step towards mindfulness. Second slide, please, Kirti. See, imagine all of these things that are happening inside of the deepest levels of our minds, causing so much stress and anxiety that we are unaware of. So can you imagine that there are so many conflicts and problems that you are aware of, and you're not able to handle and deal with all of them? So can you imagine that there's a mind inside of your brain that is actually that has a whole new level of problems and conflicts that you're unaware of? How will you deal with them? So, like I said, use mindfulness as a technique to attend to everything that is happening around you. Second of all, you need to be, when you are being aware towards it, you need to be accepting it. So when any stimuli is coming up, let it be positive or negative or any sort, neutral maybe, try to attend to it and try to accept it. If I am having a negative emotion right here, right now, I will try to accept it. I will acknowledge it, I will attend to it, and I will try to accept it. When we become aware of our emotions, when we accept it, is only when we can find solutions to them. We cannot find solutions to problems that we are unaware of, right? So we need to be aware of them, and we need to accept that there might be some problems that might be going on inside of our mind, and try to figure out solutions to that. Next slide, please, Kirti. Right. So being aware, like I said, it basically means sitting with our thoughts, analyzing them, being open and not being judgmental. So having a non-judgmental approach helps in the as a tool in mindfulness. As if we try to judge our emotions, if we try to judge our problems, they will create even more conflict. If I know that this particular emotion is not good for me, it is unhealthy, I will judge it that way. Then I'm actually telling myself that this emotion has a lot more negative power than I can imagine. I'm giving that emotion power to, go against me, to, go against my health. That is why we use a non-judgmental approach. Whatever is happening, let it happen. Let your mind be like still. No matter what is coming, your mind stays still, but it's just analyzing it. So fully experiencing our emotions, whether positive or negative. It does not mean that we only have to focus on our negative emotions. We also have to focus on our positive emotions as well. I'm going to tell you one more thing over here. So if we accept our negative emotions, if we accept whatever is coming to us, let it be hurt, let it be hatred, let it be anxiety, let it be stress, let it be guilt, let it be regret, any kind of emotions that are uncomfortable. If we are accepting them, then the chances of them turning into trauma, they reduce a lot. So if we are ignoring these emotions, that is when these feelings, these emotions are going to, in future, they might turn into trauma. There's a possibility there. But if we are being mindful towards our mental health and whatever is happening towards the emotions and everything, that is when we can prevent ourselves from having that trauma. Next slide, please, Kirti. So, like I've said, mindfulness is about being aware and being accepting towards our emotions and everything that is happening around us. Not avoiding or denying negative experiences, talking about negative thoughts, emotions. So whenever you think that, okay, I've acknowledged it, I've analyzed it, and I've sort of understood that there are some negative emotions, there are stressors that I need to tackle, and you feel that this is too heavy to take, socialize, share it with someone that you need to. But remember that this approach is problem solving, and to solve the problem you must first need to analyze it and to accept it. Next slide, please, Kirti. So as we have seen that in the pandemic, a lot is going on, a lot of negative things are going on, a lot of stressful and unhealthy things are going on. Our mind is affected, our physical health is affected, and there is like, there's one uncertainty that anything might happen. You know, we don't know how long this pandemic is going to last. We don't know how to deal with it because we are not being trained and guided throughout, because this is something that is new for everyone in this generation. Also, there are people who are losing close ones. Death of a close one like the major contribution towards a negative or a poor psychological health. So how can we help those people who are grieving, who have lost someone in the pandemic? So the first thing that we need to realize is that grieving is a natural process. So it's not that if you're grieving, if you're crying, if you're screaming, or all those emotions that are you are showcasing, they are not toxic and they are not attention seeking. Understand and remember that no matter what anyone says to you, if you need to let those emotions out, you can do that in any way that you want to. If you want to scream, you can go ahead. If you want to cry, you can go ahead. Remember that grieving is a natural process, and it is very important, because if grieving process does not happen, that is where trauma comes into play. It might turn our emotional and mental health into a, it might create trauma in the near future. So grieving includes spectrum of emotions. Grieving is not just about sadness and crying, and that's what we think it is. So the person who is grieving, they might not be able to understand of what is happening to me. At one moment I feel so happy. This happens with a lot of people. I feel happy and I feel like, okay, I can deal with it, and I find the confidence to deal with it. At one moment I feel like my life has ended and I don't know how. This bipolarity of emotions, they're happening, I don't know. People tend to panic, what is happening over here? So all these emotions, no matter what kind of emotion it is, these are the spectrum of emotions that happen in the process of grieving. They may include sadness, anger, regrets, guilt, anxiety, hopelessness, and a lot other emotions. So if you're experiencing them for over like 2 weeks, I would personally suggest that if you are experiencing them over 2 weeks and you're finding that you're not able to deal with them effectively, you can actually look for professional help. That might help you a lot in the future. Professional help might help. The professional help will help you with grief therapy. That is where the chances of trauma, of your emotions turning into trauma, they will reduce a lot, almost to negligible. So give the grieving person adequate time and resources. If you are not the person who is grieving, but you know a person who is grieving, let them have their space. Let them do what they want to do. Let them have their time and let them have their resources that they want to have. Venting out for grieving people can look like writing. Writing is a form of catharsis. Catharsis is basically concept of psychology. It means that we are anything and everything that is stored into our unconscious mind, we are letting it out and we are bringing awareness to it, and we are attending to it in our conscious mind. So whatever information that is stored in our unconscious mind, we are bringing it to our awareness. Now we are letting it out. We are setting ourselves free from all those emotions and everything. So when you start writing about it, that is when your heart opens up. When you have that flow and you keep writing whatever you may feel like writing, just start writing. And if you feel that, okay, this is something that I might like to keep it, but if you think that this is very unhealthy and full of unhealthy emotions, that is where you need to realize that this is the stage where you have attained catharsis. Just tear down the paper and throw it in the dustbin. This is the form of catharsis. You have let all the emotions that are inside your unconscious mind into your conscious mind on the surface, where you have become aware to it, and you have let it out of your system. So catharsis helps a lot in the psychological health. Second thing that we see is social support. So social support is basically having people around us who might help us. So social support can be our family, can be our friends, anyone that you think are trustworthy. They can understand me and they can help me with it. You can rely on social support. Talking about things and sharing things, they tend to help us a lot with our emotional experiences. Routine of daily life before the loss and trying to return to it. So when a person who is grieving, they they understand that this is a whole new situation, this is a whole new experience, and they have not been into this like ever. So they tend to think that life is going to stay this way, life is going to be this sad forever, and life is never going to be the same again. That is when we need to train our mind that life can be like better, life can go back to what it was. And yes, the person that we have lost, they are going to stay in our memories, we are going to love them the same way, but it need not cause us that level of psychological distress. That is when we try to, after like a week or two, whatever time you need, like I said, that healthy time and healthy space given to a grieving person, after that the person can try to return to the normal routine, starting with one thing at a time. If the person was waking up at 7 a.m. and now the grieving person was waking up at 11 p.m., try to do that. Like, am I audible?
Yes, Garima, you are.
All right. So, whatever the take one thing at a time and try to return to what you were and your routine was before the whole situation happened. Next slide, please, Kirti. Now that we have learned about becoming aware of our emotions and accepting them, can you tell me 3 negative emotions that you have experienced in the past 7 days? This is for the audience. We have just learned about how to acknowledge our emotions, how to be mindful towards them and to accept them. Can we all just write down 3 uncomfortable emotions that we have been going through in the past week? Anxiety, sadness, and loneliness, right? Anger, overthinking, anger, hostility, grief, unable to sleep, fear, hopelessness, anxiety, fear, overthinking again, frustration. I think that's a brilliant response, feeling lonely, anger, overthinking, hopelessness, tension, sadness, helplessness, lethargy, fear. If you might observe that these are repetitive terms, most of the participants, these are typing these terms only, like there's stress, there's tension, there's frustration, there's lethargy, there's sadness, there's anxiety. All these repetitive emotions that you have just accepted are actually that are the front emotions of the pandemic. That means you have just accepted what all is going on with you in the pandemic, and you have successfully reached the first stage of healing. You might be able to solve your problems now. And through these sessions of 5 days, we are going to focus on emotional hygiene. We are going to try to cover each an aspect of healing and psychological health and development through the sessions. So yes, tomorrow's session is about negative emotions, and all these emotions will be covered in that one. So people who are very interested and might want to learn about them and how to deal about them, do come up tomorrow at the same time. Next slide, please, Kirti. I received a message that says fear after seeing people dying, and thought comes in mind, maybe we are next. This paranoia, this uncertainty and anxiety that people around us are dying and it might happen to us, because this is happening, right? This is not a imagination, this is reality, and the pandemic is causing it, and we don't know how to deal with it, especially emotionally. If we know how to deal with it emotionally, we will know how to deal with it physically, right? So one thing that I want you all to know is that, remember that you need to deal with your mental health first, because if you come in the cycle of stress and negative emotions, actually stress has this tendency that it impacts our immunity system directly. So a lot of stress, it impacts our immunity system, that will make us a little more vulnerable towards the pandemic and COVID. So if we have a strong mental health, that is where we can have a strong immunity system as well. That is where we can have a problem solving approach. That is where we can come up with creative solutions. And we are confident that we might be able to deal with it. And that is something that is needed for the pandemic. So remember that overstressing is not going to help. Stressing and negative talking about pandemic and everything is not going to help. It is only going to weaken your immunity. So try to work out of it. Try to work out of those cycles of stress and negative emotions. I'm going to lead the way through that today as well, and in the upcoming sessions as well. So moving on to the negative cycle of the pandemic, like I was talking about. So if we see here, there are five dimensions that the pandemic has covered. So the first is psychological health, then we have emotional health, then we have behavior, then we have physical health, and then we have spiritual health. In our psychological health, all those emotions, all those things that you are going through, you like that people just mentioned, they're covered here. There's stress, there's anxiety, there's panic. In emotional health, we are having mood swings. We don't know how to react. We don't know how to accept emotions. We have emotional instability. One moment I'm fine, I'm happy. One moment I'm like I'm sad and I don't know. I feel helpless. I feel hopeless. And there's chronic sadness during the pandemic. Behaviors, we have become, if we see the pattern in our family, if we try to observe our own behavioral patterns, we have seen that we are throwing tantrums. Some of us are throwing tantrums. Some of us are fighting with our family members. Some of us are getting violent, aggressive, or maybe vocally or maybe physically as well. We have become more aggressive, and it's like it's happening to everyone. There's not one person who might be able to save themselves from this behavior. Violence is happening a lot. People are avoiding. People are getting into avoidance behaviors. They are just denying that pandemic is happening, that there might be COVID. They are just denying the fact that there's COVID, and it is lethal as well. People have gone more into the smoking and substance abuse and drinking tendencies. If they were previously doing so, they have increased the amount of the same. Then we have physical health, where we are facing headaches and body pain and fatigue. Literally, not just emotional and mental fatigue, but physical fatigue as well. Then we have spiritual health. We are feeling hopeless. We are feeling that our relations are affected somewhere down the line. There's communication gap that's coming up, and relation with self as well. We think that since we are becoming hopeless, and since we are becoming more sad, it's when we are starting to think that our self concept might be going down, and that we might start to have a negative self concept now. So if you may see at these five dimensions, you will realize when I tell you that these five dimensions are interrelated. So if I have a good psychological health, that means I will have a good spiritual health, I will have a good emotional health, I will have a good behavioral health, and I will definitely have a good physical health. But if I am not doing well psychologically, then all these dimensions will be affected. If my spiritual health is not good, then all these dimensions will be impacted negatively. If my physical health is not good, all these dimensions will be impacted. So they're interrelated and interdependent. Now we have just learned about this cycle, and we have realized that it is interdependent. And if we are feeling negative, then we can, it's going to impact the whole cycle. And if we're feeling positive, it's going to impact the whole cycle. But what we don't know is how to break the cycle. So how do we break the cycle? What we do is that we know there are five aspects to our health, right? So we choose one. So for example, I take physical health. Okay. For example, all of these things are going negative. There's a negative impact on health related to all of these dimensions. I take physical health and I start to exercise. I start to do yoga. And what happens is that my positive hormones, these are called these are known as happy hormones. They will release in my brain and my body. And what will happen is that I will start to feel happy, a little bit happy. That is where my psychological health will improve. That is where my emotional health will improve. That is where my behaviors will improve. And eventually my spiritual health will improve as well. This is just one example that I gave you. You can take any of these dimensions and you can work on the other dimensions just by, just focusing on one dimension at a time. Whatever that you think that you might be able to do better than other dimensions. So moving along the next slide. So this is about breaking the negative cycles of pandemic and the techniques. So we have seen that in psychological and emotional health, there were a lot of negative things. If I may take up, there are a lot of emotions, a lot of negative thoughts, overthinking patterns, anxiety that are going on. Now, how to stop overthinking? First thing that we need to understand about overthinking is that overthinking is one of the major causes of any psychological problem or disorder. What happens is that when we overthink any kind of symptom, any kind of stimuli, it tends to magnify in our mind because our thoughts are multiplying them, our thoughts are recreating them. And all those things that have the possibility and they don't have the possibility, they are coming up inside my mind, they're cropping up. And what is happening is that I'm building anxiety, I'm building those negative emotions, and my psychological health is going, is reducing even more. So when if we're having one problem and we start to overthink about it, we are actually creating more problems for ourselves. So how to challenge our overthinking, because overthinking is a concept that is very common among us, and this is, like I said, the leading cause to negative psychological health. So I'm going to be introducing the techniques now. So listen closely. Avoiding overthinking, the first technique that I'm introducing is the stop technique. When we think, when we start to observe ourselves that we might be overthinking, when a stimuli has come up and our thoughts have, they have taken a toll and they are multiplying, then we realize that there is something going on. We are aware that overthinking is happening, but we don't know how to control it. We use the stop technique. We say it aloud. We say stop. We literally say stop. We can we can repeat as many times as we want, but we say stop. If the intensity of those thoughts is less, you can do it mentally, but if the intensity is more, try doing it verbally, try saying it out aloud. When you say stop, your mind gets a movement to stop. That is the moment where we know that the mind was going into a negative direction and it has come to neutral because we have stopped that moment, we have stopped that overthinking and those negative patterns. Now, what we need to do is drive it into a positive direction. That is where we find control after the stop technique. When we stop our mind, when we stop our thoughts, we take it to a positive direction. How? We either, depending on the intensity of the thoughts and the negative emotions, if they are less intense, we can think about them. Think about them with non-judgmental approach. Think about them like these are not my thoughts, but these are someone else's thoughts, and I'm judging them in a very rational way. Try to use rational thinking. Is this even happening? I have a thought that okay, I have this girl in my life and she was my friend and she keeps doing this, she keeps doing this, she keeps doing this. Now when I stop my mind and I think about it rationally, okay, so she has done all these negative things, but has she? We question that, like, did she mean it? Did she want to do that? And what all has she done for me, for my well-being? She has done in a positive way, and how much she means to me. So what am I going to do now? All these things will, bring you back to reality, and that is where we need to come back again and again. Meeting with the reality is the whole process of developing a good psychological health. Second thing is mindfulness. Mindfulness is another technique of, like I said, awareness, focusing on the present moment and coming back to reality. Our mind, it has a tendency to take us to a level where we are away from reality. It might take us to a thinking pattern that is there in my mind, but it might not be there in reality. So my thoughts, they are reliable, but they might not always be reliable. Remember that, but the reality is always reliable. So we need to keep coming back to reality. Coming back to reality, talking about the second technique, that's called grounding technique. We use our sense organs. We use our sense organs to come back to reality. So this is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. 5 things that I can see whenever I'm thinking, whenever I'm caught up in the cycles of overthinking, or I'm feeling negative emotions or anything that I feel is out of my control, and I want to take care of myself now. I want to come back to reality. I use this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique to improve my mental health. 5 things that I can see. I use my eyes as a tool and I see 5 things. I see curtains, I see a wall, I see a painting over here, I see my laptop, and I see my phone. These are the 5 things. 4 things that I can hear. So what can I hear? I can hear the fan. I can hear someone outside saying something. Maybe there's traffic. 4 things you need to acknowledge that you can hear. These are, you can change the pattern depending upon the senses. 3 things that you can feel, as in you can touch. So I can touch the desk over here. I can touch the bed over here. I can touch my phone over here. I can touch the wall over here. So 3, 4 things that I can touch. Now 2 things that I can smell. What are the 2 things that I can smell? Maybe I can go to my garden and I can smell a flower, or maybe, I can try to smell my perfume. These are the 2 things that I'm smelling. I'm using my sense organs over there. And 1 thing that I can taste. You can go to your fridge and you can take anything up and you can taste it. So you're focusing on your senses. You're driving your attention from your mind and all those patterns and all those cycles of thinking to your senses and into the reality. You are focusing on the present moment and not where your mind is taking. So if you're able to do that, you will be able to, do it well with practice. But what it needs is practice. So if you keep practicing this, try to practice is like every day, and you will literally become a champion of this technique. Now, other techniques that we have is journaling. Journaling is basically called thought recording. I have overthinking patterns. I have unhealthy emotional patterns. I have a negative emotional health and mental health. I don't know what is happening, and I don't know even who to talk to, and I don't feel like doing it. So I record my thoughts. I use a journal. I take a diary and I start writing what is happening. I vent it out if I need to. But what I'm doing in thought recording process is that I'm either on that very moment, it would be very helpful if I do it right away. I'm I'm literally questioning those thoughts. So if my extreme thinking is telling me that this is happening and this has been happening, and why does this keep happening, and why am I always affected, then I put a question mark over there. Like, is this reality? Is this true? And I start to use my mind in a more rational way, and I jot down the things that might be wrong about those statements that I have written in my journal. This is called thought recording. If you want to, if you want to confront those emotions, those statements, and those thoughts, you can do it in this way. But if you want to journal for venting out, you don't need to question anything. You keep writing and you keep writing whatever is going on in your mind. Let your emotions out on the pages, whatever is coming up, no matter how vague it sounds. Just keep writing it. No one's going to read it. Not even you later on is going to read it. Just let it out of your system. That is a venting out mechanism. And the third thing we have is keeping an emotional diary, emotional changes diary. So we have seen that we psychologists, when we are being told about by the patient that there are emotional changes that are happening, we tell the patients, we tell the clients to record them, to write them down, to maintain a diary about what happened on this day, how I was feeling on this time, how I was feeling at this time. So we can monitor those emotions. And when we tend to monitor those emotions, we try to get to the root cause of those emotions and to those emotional changes, why they're happening. Understanding the why of all the things that are happening to me is very important, because when we understand why is when we can deal with them effectively, and that is when we can find solutions to them. Next slide, please, Kirti. Now we are breaking the negative cycle for our behavioral and physical health. So, like I said, there has been aggressive episodes happening in the family. We are getting violent. We don't know what we are doing. Sometimes our behaviors and our actions get uncontrollable, and it's natural. It's happening with everybody. Remember that. So, how do we try to control them when they're getting uncontrollable? We try to use the stop technique. Our behaviors is an outcome of our emotions and our thoughts. Our thoughts are leading us to a negative direction that is leading us to aggressive behaviors, an extreme negative outcome of those thoughts. So we stop the thoughts over there. And what do we do for stopping the thoughts? We use the stop technique. So we say it aloud. We say stop. And when we are able to stop our thoughts, that is when we use the rational thinking approach. So if you're aggressive, depending upon the intensity of your aggression, if your aggression is not very intense, you can start with your rational thinking at that very moment. But if your aggression is intense, then you can go out. Maybe you can take a breather from that. If you just had a fight with someone, go away from that person for a while. Take that space, give them space and give yourself space to calm down, to come back to normal, to regulate your emotions and your thoughts. And that is when you will be able to control your behaviors. And then you start thinking with a rational approach. What happened over there when we were fighting? I was adamant, I was dominating, and I was thinking that I'm completely right. But is that for real? Like, I might be wrong as well, right? I'm a human, I might be wrong as well. So where are the points that I might be wrong? And when you start to think about that, the other person, we start to analyze their thoughts, what they might be going through, where they are coming from, what their past experience have been. And do we even need to fight? Do we even want to fight with them or not? So we start using a rational approach towards it. Focus on your breath. So another thing to come back to reality or mindfulness, which is the topic for today, is deep breath. You just take deep breaths, you put your hand on your belly, and you feel your belly expand and contract while you're breathing. You're breathing, long, inhaling long breaths and exhaling long breaths. So, and you close your eyes and you focus your attention on your breaths. So when this is happening, you are taking away your attention from all those thoughts and all those negative energies to the positive moment. That is where we realize that uh, things, that is when we are coming back to reality. So we are repeating the breathing style again. What we do is that we put our hand on our belly, okay, and we close our eyes and we inhale a deep breath. When we inhale a deep breath, we will feel that there's an expansion on our belly, and we feel it with our hand. And we are closing our eyes and we are focusing our mind on our breath. And when we are exhaling that breath, our belly, it contracts. We feel that sensation, and we are focusing on our breath. That is where we come back to reality, away from our thought processes and everything that our mind is making, to back to reality. Then another tip for regulating our hormonal, okay, this is for hormonal regulation. In psychology, when we talk about our psychological health, mental health, this is not just limited to our mind. It is also, it also covers our biological as well as our physical, our bodily sensations and our experiences and everything. So what we can control, we think that biology is something that we cannot control. Like, I cannot control what's going on inside my brain and inside my body, but actually we can. What happens is that when we stick to a routine, a healthy routine, our biological clock, which is also called the circadian rhythm, it attempts to regulate the healthy hormones on time. When these hormones, when the healthy hormones are regulated, when they're excreted on the right time, that is when a balance is created in body and mind and brain as well. When we are not sticking to a routine and we are we are waking up all night and we are just binging on Netflix, and we are not eating on time, we don't have a routine for anything, that is where our unhealthy or negative emotions are released. And our healthy emotions, they are excreting, they're releasing on the different timings, as well as our unhealthy emotions, they are releasing on different timings. And there that's where a balance is not being created. That is where our health our health gets deteriorated. So coming to exercise and yoga, like I said, there's biology, there's experiences, there's mind, there's brain, and there's also our physical health that is responsible for our overall health. So our physical health has a direct impact on our mental health for regulating those hormones, for the healthy and happy hormones. If I exercise, if I do yoga, that is where my healthy hormones will be regulated. They will be released, and my happy hormones, when they are released, that is when my mental health is being taken care of. Lifestyle modifications, I won't go deep into that because that will be covered in the next upcoming sessions. Lifestyle modifications can mean that you're sticking to routine, that you're sticking to a healthy lifestyle, maybe healthy eating habits, maybe healthy, physical activity, maybe healthy venting out mechanisms, and as well as, hobbies. And having a healthy lifestyle overall means that you are not engaging into anything that is negative for your health. Moving along this next slide. Um, the last aspect that I've covered over here is spiritual health. What can we do for our spiritual health is gratitude. Three good things is a technique that you might have heard of. You write a list of three good things every night before you sleep. Three good things that happened with you in that on that day. So, for example, today is a day that I've lived, and tonight I'm going to go to bed. And before that, I'm going to just jot down three things, three good things that happened with me today during the day. Despite the pandemic, despite the negative and everything, remember that there's a lot of negative things going on, but that does not mean like there is not even a single positive that might be going on. There are good things going on as well, and we are going to focus on that. Maybe write a gratitude letter to someone, a person that I feel that I need to thank from my heart. I write a letter to them. Gratitude basically means being thankful. I can be thankful for the food I'm eating. I can be thankful for being here, and having my participants getting this information that that I have been uh, that I have been achieving in my past years. It could be having good meal, it could be having a good sleep, it could be having a sibling that understands you, it could be having parents, could be anything that you are thankful for. So jot them down in your gratitude journal. Meditation will help you in your spiritual health as well as in your hormonal regulation, your mental health, and your physical health as well. And introspection helps you to understand the deeper levels of your mind. Introspection is a method where you can understand your own thinking patterns, what have been happening, how they happen, my own triggers, and everything. Understanding yourself better through the process of introspection. Moving along the next slide. I have a list of do's and don'ts for you. So it basically covers that what we are going to do in the pandemic and what we are not going to do. So today's session was basically about mindfulness, especially during the pandemic, and we are going to focus on the pandemic aspect as well as our mental health. So creating boundaries. I'm going to read out the do's and creating boundaries with people, social media, and stressful conversation. If you might have observed that we don't have a lot to do these days. We don't have colleges, we don't have jobs, we don't have the same normal routine that we had before the pandemic. This is why we are spending excessive time on social media. Now the social media is full of stressful and uh, news that is happening around us, but that is right, like people need awareness of that. But the question is, are people mentally ready to accept that information? Is their mental health, capable of enough to be taking that piece of information? So that is when we limit ourselves from the social media, from stressful conversations. We keep getting calls from our families, our relatives, and friends about the pandemic. What is happening? We have been tested positive, and they have died, and this has happened. This has happened. They have been suffering from financial losses. Now, all these things, if you observe, these are not in your control. These are the things that you cannot directly help, but these are directly causing a negative impact on your mental health, right? So this is like a lose-lose situation because we're not winning anything out of it. That is where we create healthy boundaries. That we understand that this is the time that I'm going to switch to the social media, and for this limited of time, this limited minutes only or hours only, and after that I'm not going to use social media. So I'm going to limit my time. For example, I'm taking like 5 p.m. I've taken 5 p.m. as my social media time, and I'm going to use social media only from 5 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. and not through the day. That is where I have mentally prepared myself that, okay, there's going to be a lot of information and my mental health is ready to be able to, tackle with that. Also, the calls that I'm getting, the stressful conversations that are also happening in family, panic is happening, which is very natural, stress is happening, depression is happening, all these things. But what we can do right now, we have learned from this pandemic that the only way to deal with this pandemic is to, save yourself first, and not just physically, also mentally. Save yourself first. That's what I'm going to say. Create healthy boundaries, limit those calls. Okay, if you need to, tell your relatives, tell your friends that I'm not going through a very good time and I need some time off from this. You can come up with ways of creating healthy boundaries with all of these stressful stimuli. Indulging in hobbies, as we have observed, when the pandemic started, a lot of us, we started, taking course on our hobbies. We were indulging a lot in our hobbies. There were recipes all over Instagram. There were people trying new things, people were painting, people got back to dancing and everything. This was the first attempt. This is how our stress, our body tends to fight with stress, the first stage of stress. This is where we have the maximum resources and the maximum energy. Now what happens is that through the stages of stress, when we utilize all of that energy into the first stage, we get exhausted in the next stages. And that is what happened in the last time there was a lockdown. Okay, in COVID strain 1, that is what happened. We utilized all those mental resources, hobbies and everything, and we later realized that we're exhausted now. There's nothing left to do now. That is where we understand that we don't overdo things. We don't overindulge in hobbies, but we do indulge in hobbies once a day. Maybe there's a healthy time for that. I've kept a time for that. We don't exhaust ourselves even when it comes to hobbies, and we don't exhaust ourselves even when it comes to fatigue. We create a balance over time. We make our own self-care time. So every day when we know that all of these things are happening, that they are taking a mental toll on us, we take out time for ourselves, that this time I'm only going to disconnect from everyone and the world, and I'm only going to focus on myself and my health. So in this time I can do whatever I want to. Maybe I can, start with journaling, or maybe the easiest things that can happen, like for example, I like cleaning when I'm, when I'm free, or when I'm in the mode of stress. So that is half an hour I can spend on cleaning. That is like my self time. Maybe I want to read a book. I'm a reader. So I want to do that in my time. That is what we call me time. And that is where we devote time to ourselves each day. Experience your emotions fully. Like uh, we have understood through the webinar that experiencing our emotions is very important, because if we don't do that, if we are not experiencing them directly, what happens is that they get into our unconscious mind. And when they get into our unconscious mind, they create conflicts, and that is where our problems they increase. So experiencing them and letting it into our conscious mind, and not letting them seep into our unconscious mind, that is the technique that we are going to stick to from now onwards, being mindful towards whatever we are doing. Observe your mental health. So when we are being aware, when we are being accepting, that is where we are being observing as well. That means that we are observing if our mental health is going in the right direction or not. If it's not going in the right direction, try to use these techniques that I have stated in the webinar today, and try to practice them over a course of time. If they're not helping you, then I would suggest that you go and seek a mental health professional, because during these times people are going through so much of emotions and negative aspects of mental health that they have most of us have never experienced in our life before, and that is because of the uncertainty. Our minds are not trained for this. So we need training for that. We need to have those resources to be able to deal with the pandemic effect. Have happy, healthy conversations with family. So the thing is that Don't isolate yourself. Even in the time of social distancing and isolation, don't isolate yourself mentally. Do do keep conversing with your social circle. Do keep checking on them whenever you need to. Do not distance yourself emotionally from everyone, and take out time for your family. This is what we had seen last time, that we were playing Ludo and we were playing games with our family, and this is what we have done last time. I think if we start to use those tools again in a proper manner, that we don't exhaust ourselves in the first stage only, but we use them like piece by piece throughout the whole pandemic, with limited time uh, we are giving to these things, that is when we will be able to deal with the pandemic effectively. Take breaks between work. So don't exhaust yourself too much. Don't exhaust yourself mentally. Don't let yourself get into the cycle of fatigue. Vent out in healthy ways whenever you need to. So, like we talked about writing, how it is a process of catharsis, and how it helps in venting out whatever you are feeling, and it unleashes your unconscious mind as well. And if you need to cry, so don't hold that thing, don't fight against it. If you need to cry, cry, vent it out. Like I've been emphasizing on, whatever emotions that you're going through, you know, experience them. If they are positive, if you want to laugh, laugh aloud. If you want to cry, you can cry. All these emotions are very natural, and you can do what you feel like doing in those emotional times, as long as they are not very unhealthy and harmful. Now, talking to a friend, hugging a pet, that these are all the venting out techniques. Don'ts of this webinar are going to be: don't isolate yourself, like I've already told you. Don't overwork, don't fall into the cycles of fatigue and exhaustion, mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion. Then we have: don't mentally and physically exhaust yourself, like I've just stated. Avoid the negative and stressful conversations. We have covered this before. It is very important to create healthy boundaries, and to not let yourself engage in those negative and stressful conversations, or those cycles. These are vicious cycles. They keep repeating, and there's no end to it. But the only end can be that we are mentally prepared from the starting, that we are not going to fall into the cycle. We're not going to fall into the trap. Now, don't focus on conversations about the pandemic. So, like we have been observing this, like calls keep coming up from our family and friends and everyone that we know, and we are repeatedly talking about the pandemic. What has happened in the neighborhood? Who tested positive? What is happening and everything? And this is something that this is not new. If you're getting 10 calls, we're repeating the same things 10 times to those people. This is not venting out. This is actually training. This is actually the piece of information that you're giving to your mind, and you are letting these things control you emotionally. That is where you tend to lose your emotional health and your mental health. Now, this is the cycle that we need to stop. We don't need to repeat those things to 10 people. Just pick few trusted people in your social circle, family, friends, relatives, who you trust a lot. And for example, I trust 3 people in my social circle. I'm going to only vent out to those three people. Venting out means that whenever I'm feeling a state of negative emotions, when everything is taking a toll on my mental health, and I need to sort of get it out of my system, I talk to these 3 people when I need to. But in my everyday life, when I'm getting calls and everything, I am majorly focusing on what is happening to the other person, how I'm going to ask about the health of the other person, their family, and what are the resources that they might need, if they're doing well mentally or not, if they're doing well physically or not. What are the ways that I can help them in? We work on more of the solution oriented approach. Okay, so this is basically what I have covered in the do's and don'ts. And the next slide is about seeking therapy. So we have covered so many techniques. We have covered so much about our psychological health, mental health, and how to go about it. but we haven't covered that when we need to, we can go for we can go for seeking therapy. So therapy is not just for the people who have mental health problems and they have mental disorders. Rather, I would personally say that therapy is for everyone, because no one's life has been like all sorted, all positive, and there's not a single person who would be like who won't have childhood trauma. Now to resolve all that, everything that's coming up on all those things that you are not even aware of, all the things that are going on inside your unconscious mind, how are you going to help yourself with them when you don't know about it? That is when we look up to an expert. If there are parents who are watching this, I would actually advise you to not get into the social pressures. We see that the stigma in the society, they don't let the people who need help come us to help. So the parents, they don't encourage the children to seek therapy. This is something that is going to only hamper the condition of this is going to just magnify the symptoms. It is going to lead to worse things. So actually, what whoever you care about, whoever is that you're close to, your family or friends, encourage them to go to therapy whenever needed. Whenever you think that the person is going through a little more than usual and the person might need help, don't help them, don't help them yourselves, because you don't know the proper techniques. You are not much aware about psychology, right? Let the experts, like the professionals deal with it. Let the professionals handle it. And be supportive towards people. Let them go to therapy and encourage them to do so. Therapy is for everyone. It is to help you with understanding yourself and guide yourself better for future. So therapy is not just to resolve conflicts and about mind. It's also about our career. So if I want to reach somewhere, I don't know how to go there. We use the technique of guidance that is there in counseling psychology. We ask the counseling psychologist for guidance. They guide us what to do, how to get there. If we really want to accomplish something, if we are looking for growth in life, that is where we look towards an expert, right? So this is what I'm talking about. It is for everyone who want to help themselves grow. So just we need to break the stigma of people who go to therapy are the ones who are mentally ill, mentally sick, or mentally unstable. This is a stigma. Stigma is untrue. This is not true. Most of us, we need to go to therapy because it's not like we have problems or we have severe problems. It's because we need help with something or the other in life, and it's always the best to have that guidance and have that help from the expert, from someone who has been in this field for years and is an expert of this field. So this is where I'm going to end the session.